Hi guys. So today's video is going to be the second half of the Q&A. If you're interested in watching the first half, I'll have it linked down below, but I do want to get right into this one so I don't waste any time and I can get to all of the rest of your guys' questions. The first question says, did you invent any new languages for your book? I don't mean like Tolkien did with his books, but more like certain names, phrases, and things like that, or is there just one common language in the world that all the countries use, or at least no? I definitely did not pull a Tolkien where I created a brand new language and all the words and people can speak it and things like that, but there are certain countries that do speak other languages. The next question says, were there things that you had planned for the book when you started writing that changed significantly by the final product? And absolutely, this story is so different than what I had originally planned. The next question says, some authors say their characters feel so real to them that sometimes it feels like they have a mind of their own. Do you find that with any of your characters? Also, do you have a favorite character? I like different characters for different reasons. I wouldn't say that it feels like any of my characters have a mind of their own. It's interesting for me to try and imagine being like somebody that I'm not like whatsoever and trying to understand why they would be the way they are. But it still doesn't feel like I have no control over them because I'm still making them. Going along with another question that has to do with characters, this person asks, is there any character in your book that is majorly based on your own personality or maybe the personality of someone close to you that you look up to? If not, where does the inspiration for your characters come from? I feel like such a butt because I don't know where the inspiration for my characters come from. There isn't a single character that is kind of based off of myself. There isn't a single character that is based off of any one particular person I know. I try to make all the characters feel like real people, so they're gonna have some traits that exist in the individuals that are involved in my life, but nobody is based off of like everything about my husband or everything about me or my dad or my mom or something. There's nobody like that. The next question asks, which of my characters was the most difficult to create? And that's pretty tough because I'd say there are some characters that were easier for me, but I don't know there were any characters that stood out as being the most difficult. The next question asks, which came first, the story, the characters, or the world? And 100% the characters. The next question I could honestly spend a whole video on answering, but I'll try to keep it brief. It says, how did you build the world for this series, the progress of the settings and the characters, and of course the monsters and fiends? Which ones dealt first, or was it built gradually? It definitely took a lot of time for everything to come together. It was very gradual. I'll give one example of the kind of thought process that went into one element of the world building. So, for example, there are creatures called fiends in the book, which are essentially like animals, except for they have the ability to cast magic the same way that humans can, and then sometimes they actually have resistance against magic, and that's something humans don't have. And so humans have the ability to cast elements. There are rules and limitations to the magic, but I won't get into that. And the humans, of course, when you have a world where people can just like cast fire at you, you have to figure out how does somebody defend themselves against it. And if there's an animal that has the ability to do this, how do you defend yourself against that? So there are certain kinds of materials that sometimes come from mines, or sometimes they come from the fur or the scales of fiends that are element resistant. And so it's kind of subtly referenced in the book that one of the characters whose royalty, the stones in her crown, have element resistance to them, or the threads in the clothing that somebody's wearing has, it comes from element resistant creature, things of that sort. So that's the kind of thinking that goes into, well, if people can do this and there are creatures that can do this, then where does that leave us at the end where people aren't just completely defenseless all the time? I really like this next question. It says, do you find reading books similar to the genre you are writing to be difficult while writing that genre, or do you find that it helps with inspiration? Also, do you think that because you have more than one creative outlet, for example, music and writing, that other types of creativity help with the writing process? I'm a huge advocate for reading in your genre, and I'm also just an advocate for, if you're a writer, you should probably read books. And to kind of tie into the idea about having other creative outlets, is that helpful? I think just the process of, since I'm a music teacher, I teach violin lessons, I think it really is similar. Sometimes I'll tell a student, hey, here's a recording of the piece you're working on, and then they listen to it, and the next week they're doing so much better with that piece because they heard it. They heard what it's supposed to sound like, and that is so helpful. And you can tell them how to count, you can tell them how to read the notes, you can tell them how much bow to use, you can tell them all the mechanics that go into how to play that, but sometimes just hearing it is enough. And I think that's true of writing as well. You can tell everybody the craft of writing and how to do everything, the mechanics and grammar and all of that kind of stuff, but sometimes if you just read it, if you just read a fantasy book. You'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. The next question is really sweet. It says, do you write exclusively in digital format, or are you a pen and paper user as well? If I do end up using pen and paper, do I have any kind of tools or anything like that? I absolutely love to write stuff down in these little journals. I think when it comes to the initial planning and formatting, I love to do that on paper. I wouldn't say I have any tools necessarily, just pencil and paper. And I really do like doing that kind of stuff, just getting it out on a piece of paper. I think is extremely helpful. But when I actually go to write a scene, yeah, that always ends up happening on a computer. The next question asks, do you want each future book to stand on its own, or are you trying to build a body of work with connections between each book? I'm talking all future books you write. So like, you talking Cosmere, like Sanderson style, because it's definitely not Cosmere. Peace and Turmoil is book 1 of the Dark Shore series. When you read it, it's very clearly book 1. You'll get to the end and the story's not done. But the other stories that I'm working on, they're not tied into this series at all. The next question says, what made you decide to write a fantasy novel? And I just can't help it. I don't have to. I have only one story idea that doesn't involve fantastical elements, but it's just so much more fun, and you can still explore the human experience in a fantasy novel. I know some people are snooty when it comes to genre fiction, but that's nonsense, and they're stuck up. Fantasy's awesome. The next question has 2 parts. The first being, how do you manage writing with recording videos and managing all other stuff? Are you Sanderson? I'm definitely not Sanderson. I think it's just kind of built into my personality and also instilled in me from my parents, who are extremely hardworking, to not feel fulfilled at the end of the day if I haven't accomplished something. And I mean accomplished something outside of working. So I work, but then in my spare time, I feel like I have to do something. I feel like I have to produce something. I have a really hard time enjoying leisure time if I haven't spent some of my spare time creating or doing something. And the next question they ask is, how many books do you plan to write in the Dark Shore series? I have the first 3 very, very well thought out, and then I know how it's gonna end, but I don't want to give a for sure answer on that. At least 5, I'll tell you that, at least 5. Chances are between 5 and 7. We'll see. I absolutely love the next question. I think it's a great question. Is there a difference between the style that I write versus the style I like to read? Instinctively, I want to say yes, I write in the style that I like to read, but there are some authors out there that I would think, oh, I'll never like this. And then I read the book and I end up loving it. So I guess I'm not sure. Next question is one I don't feel qualified whatsoever to answer. It's, do I have any tips for querying agents? And because I'm choosing to self-publish, I would say basically no, that I don't have any idea. But what I will say is, from the research I've done about trying to go the traditionally published route, I would say when you're reaching out to an agent, actually do your homework and look into that agent and see what kinds of books that they are interested in. Read what they require when you are sending them something, and just get their personality, get an idea of their personality, kind of stalk them on social media, and then try to appeal to that individual. The next questions have to do with writing. Do I have any writing routines? Do I have any daily writing goals? Anything like that? I don't have daily writing goals. I make writing goals, but they're not based off of per day. And then as far as writing routines, I really don't have any. I don't have to like get myself a cup of cocoa and then I have to be sitting here at this time. I don't have anything like that. The next question is, how do I keep track of details? And honestly, I make lots of lists, and I feel like a jerk saying this, but I have a pretty good memory, so some details I just kind of remember. The last question is, how do I come up with names? And that's tough because some names I've put a lot of thought into, and I've really tried to represent something about that place or character or whatever in their name. And sometimes literally it's like I hear a name and I'm like, yeah, I like that. That is it for the Q&A. Thank you so much to all of you for asking such amazing questions. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.